In today's episode, Courtney and I sit down with Josh Gurley, the president of HM Advisors, and we're going to be breaking down and talking about how insurance originally started, the term underwriter, what Josh has learned throughout his career. We're going to be talking about commercial insurance. We're going to be talking about the importance of relationships and reiterating that you are in the people business, automation, delegation, what should be automated, what should not be automated and delegated. So, with that being said, let's start the show. Are you a sales producer that constantly struggles with hitting your P&C goals every month? Are you tired of every single conversation you have with a new client always coming back to price? And if you don't save them money, you don't close them? That's exactly why we created the 0 to 6 figure insurance producer course to help you understand exactly how to have a conversation with a customer that guides them away from price, allowing you to actually help them out. We're going to teach you how to have that elevator pitch, how to get them interested in initially even having a conversation with you, how to build rapport and find commonalities, how to have a discovery conversation where you guide them away from price and actually figure out their problems, and then how to propose your presentation of always giving them more policies, more coverage, and educating them. And finally, how to confidently and professionally ask for the sell a minimum of 3 times in every single conversation, overcoming those most common objections that you're facing every single day. So if you're tired of struggling, if you want to be confident in what you do every single day, if you want to feel like you're actually making a difference and you're just not closing people because of price, this course is for you. Make sure you click the link below, check out the show notes. Other than that, let's get back to the show. Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. We are your hosts, Michael and Courtney Weaver, and today we have a very special guest, Josh Gurley. Josh, what's going on, my man?
Well, it is always a pleasure to be here, to be above the ground, breathing the air, enjoying life one day at a time as a husband, father, insurance, agency owner, all the things, man. And it's an honor to be here today. I'm very thankful that you invited me. It was a surprise when I got kind of an email out of the blue to come on your show. And the first thing I did was reach out to David Carruthers because I thought maybe David had something to do with this. And he said, absolutely, it was me, guilty as charged. And then I reached out to some other good friends of mine, some podcasters, and I said, hey, I don't know Michael and Courtney, but do you know them? And they all said, yes, we do know them. They're great people. You should definitely come on their show. So I did do a little bit of background research on you guys, and everything that I got was just glowing reviews. And so I'm excited to be here with you today.
Well, I love a good recommendation before we get going. Josh, thank you so much.
Yeah, man. We asked David. You're right. I'm like, David, who is an absolute must that we need on the show that is going to help people out? You're the first one he said. So, you know what? And I appreciate you saying yes because we understand that you're busy and you being able to give your time to us is very much appreciated. So, thank you.
You're very welcome for that. Let me tell you something. I really just love the insurance business. I don't think there's any more noble of an industry that you can find yourself in. I mean, when people are having their worst day, when their house burns down, when they're in a car wreck, when their business gets sued and the sheriff shows up and there's a lawsuit that's delivered, we're the people that just come in and say, okay, let's take a breath here. We're going to help you get through this. And it's one of those things that not a lot of people know about, not a lot of people understand. And I think that what we do is very noble. I mean, even going back to the oldest origins of the insurance industry, and you think about the shipping business and where the term underwriter came from. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. Is that when insurance first started, they were sending these ships over to the New World, and they would be crushed by a storm, or there would be a pirate, or something would happen. They get lost out at sea, and people got tired of losing all their stuff that they were sending, and so they thought maybe we could figure out a way to transfer this risk. And there were some people that said, okay, we can figure this out. And so they would write on this board, and it would say, hey, we have this much value and stuff on the ship. And then they would say, I tell you what, if the ship gets lost, we will reimburse you for everything that you lose, but you're going to have to pay us a little money in exchange for that. And so they would write the deal, literally write it up. They would draw a line under the deal, and then the people that were taking the risk would write their name underneath the line and how much risk they were taking, which is where we today get the term underwriter from. So that is not a new term or something that just popped around in the last 100 years. That's been around for as long as insurance has existed. And so I'm kind of a traditionalist when it comes to that. But yeah, man, it's a good business to be in, and excited to hear whatever questions you guys have for me.
I just learned something new. All right. I just learned something new. I didn't know that. All right. But I would agree with you. We would
Mm.
agree with you. We always say insurance is the most noble profession in the world. You all are the protector of assets, baby. Just like Superman had an S on his chest, you have an A on your chest. You have the ability to change people's lives. You have the ability to be there for them on their worst day and make sure that they have a plan in place so that they don't have to suffer financially. And that is why you have, and every single one of you listening right now, have the most noble profession in the world. So, Josh, let's get into this right now.
Yeah, because we reached out to David because David came on and talked all about insurance in the commercial space. So that's where I want to go.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about commercial sales, commercial insurance, what you're seeing in the market, and what we as producers and agency owners need to be doing to stay ahead of it.
So the thing that I like to talk about the most is the way that I think agents should be working in today's market. Because in the past, what a lot of agents have done, and people still do this today, and people have been very successful like this, they've made a lot of money like this. So I can't say that it's a terrible strategy. But what I have seen historically, it boils down to this law of large numbers. You hear this a lot. You hear consultants talk about it. They say, hey, the more quote opportunities you get, the more leads you get, right? The more that goes in the top of the funnel, the more that's going to come out of the bottom of the funnel. And that's what I was taught. In fact, when I first started in the insurance industry, I was given this thing called a memory jogger. And in the memory jogger, I had to write down all of these different names. There was like 400 different categories on there. And it was everything from like who is your mailman to who owns the shoe shining place to who does nails and who does all these things, right? Who's your doctor? Who's your dentist? And you have to write all these names down, and you get to the end, you compile this long list of like 400 things, and they say, all right, so now what you got to do is you got to call these people on the phone, and you got to get their X date. That's the first thing. You call them on the phone, and you say, hey, this is Josh Gurley. I'm calling you. Hey, I want to know when your insurance expires because 90 days in advance of that, I'm going to call you on the phone, and I'm going to ask you to give me an insurance quote. And for a while, I got to be honest with you, I tried that. And it felt like such a slow slog in doing that. And then, but very early on, like I was maybe a month or 2 months into my insurance career, I went to this class that really changed everything about my career from that point moving forward. And the class was called The Great Escape. All right, we had this at an insurance company's office, and the person that was teaching the class, most people know this guy, Scott Addis. He's the original gangster of commercial insurance sales coaching. He was a super successful guy, owning an agency and as a producer, and has the Addis Group. Really, really intelligent guy. And he posed this question, and I called him one time and I said, "This question that you posed, it changed my life," because he was kind enough to give me his phone number and said, "If you ever need me, call me." And I said, "This question you posed, it changed my life." And he said, "What is the primary function of an insurance producer?" And there were hands that shot up everywhere. Everybody, oh yeah. And called on the first person. And they used my least favorite term. They said, "Oh, it's to find the proper coverage at the best price." It's like, oh, geez, you know. And it's like, okay, well, that's oversaid. Every time I see a Facebook post that says "proper this," I'm like, what does that even mean? Proper? What? This is not like an etiquette class. It's not like I'm in the. It's not like I'm in the. When I was in the 5th grade, I took an etiquette class that taught me how to put my silverware in the proper place. Right. I learned how to ballroom dance when I was in middle school because my parents thought it was like this great life skill or whatever. Everybody should know how to do these certain things. You should know how to change a tire, ballroom dance, whatever. Same thing. But so people they were raising their hand and they were like, "Oh, you got to find the best insurance company. You got to find this. You got to find that. You got to look." And then this one person in the back of the room just stuck their hand up, and this guy made this comment. I'll never forget it. He said the primary purpose of an insurance producer is to get the competition fired. And from that moment on, everything about the way that I approached the business changed. And I thought to myself, this is true, right? Let's think about this if you're in a different kind of business. Let's say you're a car salesman, okay? If somebody wants to buy a truck, they might buy a truck this year from you. They might buy the next truck from somebody else. They might buy the next truck from somebody else. But it's just a very transactional thing. You're just buying vehicles. There's nobody to unseat. Right? There's no car salesperson that's there that's like, I am the signed, sealed, delivered, legal car sales rep for, Michael and Courtney. That's not a thing. You're free to buy a car from wherever you want. But insurance it's a legal contract. It's a binding contract that you have. And by law, we have to have this stuff. We have to have it on our auto. We have to have it on our house if we have a mortgage. We have to have it, on our business to get certain licenses. Okay. So we have to have this stuff. Well, guess what? There's an incumbent on every single policy that you have ever sold. Unless it's a startup or brand new business. There's an incumbent. And so at some point in that transaction, they have to fire somebody. And now in today's world, there's a lot of transactional, business, people buying insurance on the internet, whatever the case may be. But there's still a lot of business that is controlled by human beings. The vast majority of it is controlled by people. And so we have to understand that we are not in the insurance business. We're actually in the people insurance business, right?
Mm.
We're in the insurance of relationships, okay? And so what I started doing when I would go to a meeting is I would say, and I'm going to pick on you, Michael, is if Michael was the incumbent agent, I would pretend that Michael was sitting in the chair right next to me. Because everything that I'm saying to my prospect is being translated through the lens of what Michael says. They're comparing everything that I say to everything that you say. And some of the things that I say are lining up, and some of the things I say, they may not line up. But at the end of the day, your client has got to fire you to hire me. They're not going to have 2 auto policies. They're not going to have 2 general liability policies. They're not going to have 2 property policies. They're not going to have 2 work comp policies. They're not going to have any of that, right? They have to fire you and they have to hire me. And the biggest mistake that I think insurance people make is they introduce the concept of having to fire your current representation way too late in the game. And you hear people talking and they say, a BOR is a bad thing. They say, trying to get people fired is a bad thing. You should just go get an insurance quote. Well, remember, we're getting them fired, but we're not saying anything bad about them. Nothing at all. I'll give you a good example. A number of years ago, I worked on this account, and this will be a little bit of a technical conversation, but I was reviewing the claims history on this workers' comp policy, and there was an open claim on there, and it was $200,000, and it was a little odd to me because on the loss run, it said that the claim happened 5 years ago. Okay, and it's not very often that you see a $200,000 claim that's open for 5 years. And I asked the person that I was meeting with, I said, "Hey, any idea what's going on with this $200,000 claim that's open?" And they were like, "We don't have a $200,000 claim that's open." I said, "Well, on so-and-so, you do have a claim that's open." And he looked at me and he said, "That guy's been back to work for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or however long it was." And I said, "Well, what did the claim actually close out?" He said, "I don't know." So he went on there and he looked, and it closed out for a fraction of that amount. Well, as we all know, you have an experience modification factor on your workers' comp, and they file this unit stat card, and it gets filed every single year, and the insurance company sends this information, and they promulgate an experience mod. So for a full mod cycle of 3 years that shows up, the oldest 3 of the past 4 shows up, his mod was getting crushed by this claim. So we'll say, look, this ain't no big deal. We'll just go refile your unit stat card. We'll get it closed out the proper way. And all of a sudden, the mod changes, the premium gets refunded from those years. All this stuff happens. And it's like, I never brought an insurance quote to the table. The only thing I did was just look at the information. And I said, are you ready to hire us? And it was like, well, of course. We didn't even talk about the other person. We just talked about what was sitting there right in front of us. And they sign an agent of record letter. And there's a lot of people that say that's stealing. That's not good. But at the end of the day, if you were to ask that particular insured, I think they would say it was a good deal for them. And it was a good deal for me. But if I didn't introduce that concept of like, you might have to fire the person who you like, who you know, and who you trust, because that's really in insurance the whole definition of competence. It's like if you were going to go get, heart surgery or something serious, I don't think you would choose the person who you liked, knew, and trusted. I just don't. I mean,
bedside manner doesn't matter in life.
Yeah,
or
you're
death.
you're picking the best one, baby.
Yeah.
You're picking the best one. You're like, so I really like this person, but they just got out of medical school and they've only done about 20 of these. Or there's this person over here, they're kind of a jerk, but they've done this about 600 times and nobody has ever died on their table. I think I'm picking the guy that's done this 600 times, right? And so, but again, competence and insurance, we got it all backwards. We call it liking, knowing, and trusting. We somehow equate that to whoever we're working with actually knows what they're doing. And so the biggest mistake that people make is they believe in the quoting and hoping method, because that's really all it is. They call them on the phone. They tell them they want to give them a quote. They hope they're less money. Let's add a couple more hopes. They hope they get the business, and they hope that whatever the prior agent did was good enough, because they're just taking that work and they're copying it, and they're saying, we're going to get you the same thing you got for less money. And the reality is there is no such thing as the same thing you got.
No, that is a shitty strategy. That is terrible.
It just sounds like you're repackaging a turd.
It's
just putting different wrapping paper on it.
But you're 100% right, Josh. Like, you are 100% right. Like, the transactional selling environment over the last 10 years, in my opinion, has devastated this industry. It has made people lazy. All right. If we're just going to throw that out there, and hopium, like, hope is not a strategy. Like, how are you differentiating yourself? More importantly, how are you going to make sure that you are not going to be replaced by a robot? Because if you're doing something that a robot can do, you will be replaced by a robot in the next 3 to 5 years. And that's where the human connection comes in, which is where I want to go with you. So you just shared extremely powerful stories. How are you prioritizing relationships and people right now in your business? How are you being intentional with that?
Well, I believe there's some things that are too important to automate, too important to delegate. Okay, I'll share more about that later. But the thing, at least for us, and again, there's some agents out here that may say, "Oh gosh, this guy's just so old school. He must use paper files," which is the farthest thing from the truth. But we use technology where we think it makes somebody's life easier, not necessarily where we think it makes our life easier. Well, I'll give you a great example. We do not download in commercial lines. And look, I might get raked over the coals about this from a lot of people, but we do not download any policy information in commercial lines. So there are a lot of people that would say that that's not how you should do it. I can make a great argument for why nobody should download in commercial lines. We believe that our application is the source code. It is the source record. And if what is on the insurance policy does not match what's on our application, the insurance policy is wrong, right? Our truth in our agency is our application. And why would we allow anyone else to put information into our application? Okay. That's kind of where I start, right? It's just with correct information. We think that download, and we like download and personal lines, but 75% of our business is commercial. So, I'm talking about that. But like, we think that commercial download, it hurts your data integrity, right? And so we want to make sure that we have correct information when we're talking to every single client. We want to make sure that our source record is true, and we don't want anybody compromising that data. Okay. But on the flip side, we let everybody go get their own certificates through our portal if they want to. Now, if they don't want to, we'll do every single one of them. And I tell every client, I'm like, look, if it's a complicated certificate, we're going to have to do it anyway. But if it's something that you can go get yourself and you want to go get yourself, and your certificate holder doesn't have any crazy requirements, then we're more than happy, for you to be able to go get that yourself. So we try to use those things that will enhance their experience that they have with us, but we try not to do things just because it makes our life a little bit easier. Does that make sense? And I think it still brings that relationship into it.
Are you an insurance agent struggling to meet your sales goals? Do you feel overwhelmed and disorganized, making it hard to keep track of your leads and close deals? If so, our sales training program is the solution you've been looking for. Our program is designed specifically for insurance agents who need help improving their sales skills and increasing their productivity. We understand that the insurance industry, it can be highly competitive, fast-paced, which is why we've created a program that will help you stay ahead of the curve and close more deals. We understand that your time is valuable, which is why we've created a program that is flexible and convenient. You can access the sales training lessons and coaching sessions from anywhere at any time so you can fit your training around your busy schedule. Don't let the lack of sales training hold you back from achieving your full potential as an insurance agent. Sign up for our sales training program today and start closing more deals, generating more revenue, and achieving your sales goals with more confidence. There's so much more to the program. So if you're interested in joining the program that's helped over 10,000 insurance agents nationwide, visit our website, www.weaversa.com, or send me a text directly at 816-727-7610 with any questions to find out more. So data integrity is very important up front. So once they become a customer, though, what does that look like on enhancing that customer relationship to where they don't leave you in 6 months, 12 months on the personal line side of things, and you're establishing a credible customer base that is profitable for the long term? Like, what does that look like?
I think as far as our, commercial clients go, I've got something I'm working on to formalize that. And I guess this is a good enough time to tell everybody what it is. It's the HM Advantage. And what we're going to do is we're going to take all the stuff that we do for somebody, and we're going to try to put it all in one place. And for example, when we have experience mod verification to make sure their experience mod is correct, we need a place to put that for everybody. We need a place where people can go and they can log into their safety portal that we have. We have a place where people can do their OSHA logs, right? And we got all this stuff, and it's just floating out here everywhere. And it's not like all seamless in one place. And so that's one thing that I think we're going to start, that we're in the process of developing, so that people realize that, hey, I'm tied to this agency, not necessarily I'm tied to an insurance company. So I think that's going to make it easier so people can find stuff all in one place. Because as you know, I mean, there's really no solution out there that can do everything that you need as an independent agent. And so my idea is kind of like a way to consolidate all the logins to one particular, you know, landing page that people are going to have and be able to interact with us. Looking at streamlining the way that we do our renewal applications and being able to get that stuff into the agency management system, you know, a little bit easier. We have a claims management process that we go through with everybody. So it takes a lot of time, and I have a person that's dedicated to it. But claims come in all ways, right? And whether it's a claim, whether it's an endorsement, whether it's, whatever the case may be, we call that mail. It's all mail. And like your whole service philosophy boils down to how do you handle the mail? Okay. And mail and look, and I use mail as one giant word. Email, phone calls, claims, endorsements, policies. It's all mail. And we have to sort it. And we're this like sorting center for this stuff. And so some people believe in front end scanning, some people believe in back end scanning, some people believe in filing cabinets, some people believe in the Hope model, right? So you have to decide what you're going to do with that mail. All right. So with us, I mean, we do front end scanning in our office, which means we put it into the management system, when it comes in. But anyway, with the claims, they come in all different directions. Now we do download claims. Some of them you have to go get because they don't download. Some of them send you automated emails to certain websites, right, or certain email addresses that we have set up. And some of them will notify you. Then you have to go to their website. So I have a person in my office that has figured all this out. And to the client, I don't know if we might call it automated, but it's not. I mean, to me, it's automated because somebody does it, but it's not. It's not really automated. But we go start calling on these claims, and we bulldog these claims to the finish line because, as you know, work comp claims, the longer they stay open, the bigger they get. The longer auto claims stay open, the more frustrated they get. The longer the homeowner claim stays open, the more frustrated they get. And so when you have an advocate and you try to run these things to the ground, they tend to close out for less money. The clients tend to be happier. And you can take a claim situation, I've always said this, and you can really find a client for life if you handle a claim well. I mean, we had a tornado that came through and blew down two clients, houses side by side. And, I mean, we were just all over them. And, or like I had an auto claim. I don't even know who this person is. It was just my personalized manager called me. And she's like, we got this auto claim, and we were waiting on the check, just backed into something. And finally, I called the claims manager at the company. And I said, look, I need a check today. And they're like, well, it was like a Tuesday. They're like, we only write checks on Thursday. I said, well, you're going to write my check today. And I said, you're going to overnight it till tomorrow. They said, well, we don't do overnight checks. I said, send me the bill then. I said, but you're going to write the check today and you're going to overnight it tomorrow, or I'm going to drive an hour up the road and I'm going to stand in your lobby until your claims department writes the check and hands it to me, and I'll deliver it to this person myself. I had no idea. I don't know who it was. But I'm like, that's the level that I think we have to be going to in today's market because people got so many options and everybody's selling insurance.
Well, and I think what you just said right there, especially in our profession in the insurance space, we have to be advocates. We have to be advocates for our customers, even if it makes us uncomfortable. There are so many times that we have had to go to battle for something that we know, just like that story right there. Like our job is to take care of somebody on their absolute worst day. And even if it makes me a little uncomfortable, to say, "Hey, I have to say this," or "Hey, this is what's going to happen," or "This is what we need to do to stay in integrity." I think in the insurance space, we have to push just a little bit farther to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to advocate for our customers.
Without a question, if you ask a customer, what's the number one reason that you have insurance besides the law makes you have it? To make sure if I ever have a claim, it's covered. A claims experience, the number one reason why customers have insurance is for the claims process and to make sure that during that process, that's why they're paying you as the agent. That's why they're with you, is to have a great experience. Now, Sometimes your hands may be tied, but you can still be an advocate. You can still show up. You can still care, and you can still make those calls. You can do what you need to do to try and get the claim processed and make the experience a great experience for the customer. And if you do that, if you're willing to go above and beyond when the customer needs you the most, the likelihood that they become a customer for life increases tenfold, I would say, because they know that when shit hits the fan, you are there for them or your agency is there for them. I believe in having a claim management system. We did in our office. We had a designated claim rep that every single week she was following up with every single person that had an open claim. How you doing? Is there anything we can do? Do you have any questions? The adjuster, how did your appointment with the adjuster go? I think it's one of the best practices you can have within your agency. If you're a current agency owner today and you do not have a claim management process or system within your agency, I think it's one of the best things you can do.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think that's another good example of automation. I think automation is great if you want to use it, but I just don't know. I don't think sending out an email when the next step of the claim process happens is what we should be doing. I think what we have to do is have stuff that is coming from a person. And again, going back to my point is like we have people buy this stuff from people at the end of the day, and I like to use the example, and we have this with everybody. I mean, we have this with our clients, we have this with our employees, we have this with everybody that we interact with our insurance companies. And I talk about this all the time to our folks, and I call it the trust bank. And there's no such thing as a neutral transaction. And that's what I think, again, just gets me back to my point about my philosophy on doing business is there's no such thing as a neutral transaction. Like, there's no such thing as if you want to change a car, service at such and such dot. No, certificates at such and such.com. There's a lot of people that operate that way. I'm just telling you, I don't operate that way. If you're a personalized customer of my agency, then you're going to call Ginger or Stacy or Megan. Okay, that's who you're going to call, depending on who your account manager is. All right, and then in our commercial lines department, you're going to call Josh or Andrew or Adam or Haley or Stacy. I mean, not Stacy, Susan or Melanie or Helen. You're going to call one of those people if you have a claim or you need something going on. Like, I just think it's like too important.
Mm-hmm.
I think even though we have this world of, and I'm not on like TikTok or anything, but it's like we live in this world of like these 40-second clips or 15-second clips or whatever. It's
Sound
like
bites. Yeah.
people will send me funny, like they say, "Oh, this is a funny TikTok," and I'm like, I can't open this. I'm not on TikTok, and I'm not ever going to be on TikTok. Okay. Or any or social media, like, and it's not that I have a problem with any social media. I really don't. I mean, I think social media is a great tool for people to use in the right way. It's just like for me, I can't live my life in like 20-second clips, you know and that's kind of the thing that I have experienced. And so when we have that claims process or we have that change process or whatever, none of these transactions are neutral. That's what I'm saying. They either
Yeah.
build confidence or they remove confidence.
That's
And
right.
eventually, if you remove enough confidence, your check's going to
Mm.
bounce.
Mm.
And that's what happens. That's why people lose employees, is because they just take all these withdrawals and they withdraw from their employee. They never make a deposit. And eventually one of those checks bounces and the employee says, I'm going to do this somewhere else. And the same thing happens with your clients. I mean, you send out everything, every certificate within, however, 2 hours every single time. And then one goes to 3 hours, and then one goes to 4 hours. And then your time starts turning to 24 hours. Well, guess what? You made all these deposits, and then you started making withdrawals and withdrawals and withdrawals. And then something happens, and you bounce a check, and you're done with that client. And so I call it the trust bank. And we always have to be making more deposits in that bank than we're making withdrawals. So I think that's another thing that is important, is to say there's no neutral transactions. There's no just an ID card. That makes sense.
Yeah, I love that, and I think with technology, I think we have used technology to replace relationships, and technology should be used to enhance relationships. Like, this is just the cherry on top of what we're already doing. Use technology to take it to the next level, but don't use it to replace relationships because nothing can replace relationships. If you start doing that, you will be replaced.
Well, it's just like what Josh said earlier. We are in the people business. You are in
Yes.
the people business. And the good news is millennials, Gen Zs, they want the human connection. They are craving it. The data out there supports this. I just saw a statistic the other day that 83% of millennials want that go-to professional that they can turn to for advice.
Mhm.
You can be that go-to professional. You can be the person that people want to work with, but you have to be willing to be in the people business. Use technology, use it to enhance customer experience, not replace the customer experience. Josh, this is fantastic. I feel like we could keep this conversation going for days, brother, man. This has been great. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, with you, follow you, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Is probably the best place to find me. I'm out there. I don't post a lot, but I'm out there.
Hell yeah, LinkedIn.
Is
Yeah.
there anything else you want to add? I think there's a little note about what not to delegate that you
Oh
wanted to
yeah. Well,
mention.
I've got lots of things that I could add, but let me say this first because I want to say this. I think everybody that's listening to this needs to be involved at some level with your state association. Okay, if you're an independent agent, you should be involved with your state association. If you are a captive agent, or that's a I don't like that word, exclusive agent, or whatever the proper term should be, and you have an association that advocates for your clients, you should advocate with them. Okay, exclusive agents or independent agents, we're all on the same team. You know, we should be advocating at the state level for things to get better for our clients. Nobody likes delivering rate increases. Nobody likes that. But in the state of Georgia, when the entire state is unprofitable, all lines of business are unprofitable: commercial auto, private passenger auto, commercial package, homeowners. The only line of coverage that's actually making money in Georgia is workers' compensation. We all have a part to play in that. And so, whatever it is that you have where you can support tort reform, legislative reform, we're going to have to do that because the insurance companies, they may support it somewhat, but I'll just give you an example. In Georgia, we are outraised by 40 times on versus the trial attorneys. And from a tort reform perspective, the insurance companies they're losing, and ultimately the public is losing because of this. So we have to do our very best, from I think from a legislative perspective to push for tort reform and limit some of these nuclear verdicts that we're seeing. But that said, look, I've enjoyed being on here. I think there are a couple things that are too important to delegate in business, but mostly in life. All right. If you're listening to this, if you're a new agent, one of the mistakes that people make is they spend a lot of time working and a lot of time building this thing, and this thing becomes like, their religion or their baby or their, husband, their wife or whatever, right? It just becomes this thing. And I was eating lunch with a guy today, an insurance guy, that told me he was working on a proposal at 2 o'clock in the morning. And his wife comes down the stairs and she's just in tears and she's like, you can't do this anymore. You just can't do this. And this was years and years ago, and he didn't. But I think the thing is that there's some stuff that's too important to delegate. Nobody can be a husband or a wife but you, right? Nobody can do that job. You can't delegate that job to another person. You can't delegate that to an app or a piece of technology. That's something that you got to do. Okay. A good joke that I've heard is something like, there's two things that are really hard to do over the internet. It's sell insurance and make babies. So, I mean, one of those is 100% true. If somebody ever figures that out, we're all in trouble. I bet you weren't expecting that one, were you?
Oh, that's a good one.
I like it.
But it'll come out. It'll be like first internet baby conceived. You wait.
Yeah.
So, and then the other one is no. You can't delegate being a parent. I mean, you can't. It's too important. You can't delegate it to anybody but yourself. I'm a firm believer in having parents who are engaged with their children. Right. I'm a firm believer. Like some people would say, "Oh, Josh, you're just you're overkill." My daughter is 5 years. I've rocked my daughter, 5-year-old daughter, to sleep like every night for her entire life, and my son is 8, and one of us will lay down with them every single night. I mean, we'll switch off. But last night I rocked my little girl who's 5 years old, and like they'll say, "Oh, she's too old. You're teaching her, all these bad habits," and they're like, "Oh, you need to let them cry it out." What I say is I'm trying to raise a girl that's going to become a woman who is going to compare every man that ever comes along to court her to her own father. Right? That's what I'm trying to do. And nobody is going to be better to this little girl than I am. That's 100% guarantee right there. So that's my advice to people. This business stuff is all cool. It's fun. It's easy to say, oh, well, if you've made it or you have your agency and you're established and this, that, but look where I am. And I'm going to tell you something. When I started, we had 3 companies and not much revenue when I started. And so I didn't have everything that I have today, but the longer I do this and the more our company grows, the more I realize that it's not the most important thing. So I hope
Amen.
that all the listeners out there take that piece to heart. And if you've ever listened to a podcast I've been on, you've heard that probably 20 times now.
No, that's
You could say that all day long on this podcast, Josh.
Yeah,
We gladly welcome that.
We were just talking to an agent last week that called us, and him and his wife were struggling, and it's a conversation around just if things aren't going well personally, things aren't going to go well professionally. And quite frankly, you can choose any career you want. You can't choose your family, man. Your family, your wife, your spouse, your kids. You got to prioritize. And I know sometimes business seems like it should be, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but you got to prioritize what's important. And families should be important. Should be the number one.
I think about this a lot about there's so many lasts that happen, and you're talking about young kids. Like there will be a last time that you pick up your son and your daughter. Like that will be it. Hopefully it's when you're 80 years old and they're still climbing all over you. But when I think about my life and I close my eyes for the last time and I think about the best moments of my life, it's not going to be business. The best moments of my life are going to be spent with people that I love, doing things that I love. So, Josh, thank you for sharing that.
The good old days are the days right now.
These are the good
old days.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I appreciate you having me on here. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I hope we can talk again in the future. This has been great. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. For all of those of you that are listening, thank you so much for your support. As always, time is the most valuable and important asset that we all have. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend it with us. Go out and make it great.